Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the heart of ancient Rome, right under the shadow of the iconic Colosseum. Imagine this, you're strolling through the bustling streets and above you, the grand structure looms, casting its shadow over the city. It's a place where gladiators fought for their lives, where emperors paraded their wealth, and where everyday people lived in the most peculiar ways. You're going to experience the daily life of a Roman citizen, not the grandiose tales of emperors, but the stories of the regular folks who made up the heartbeat of the empire. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment telling me where you're tuning in from and what time it is. It'd be fun to know who's listening. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. As the sun begins to set behind the towering ruins of the Colosseum, you find yourself standing in the middle of ancient Rome's lively streets. There's a buzz in the air and energy that's both foreign and familiar. You hear the faint hum of chatter, the clattering of carts, the distant calls of merchants. If you close your eyes for a moment, you can almost smell the spices, the roasted meats, the freshly baked bread that wafts through the air. But let's be clear, this isn't a city of smooth paved roads and luxury. Oh no, this is a city of stone, dust, and grit. You start your walk down one of Rome's many cobbled streets, and soon you're at the bustling marketplace. It's the heart of daily life for the average Roman. Everything happens here. Traders haggle for their goods, slaves carry heavy baskets of grain and olives, and the aroma of street food is overwhelming. You can't help but stop at a stall where an old woman is selling honey-drenched pastries. The honey sweet scent is irresistible. She offers you a taste, and while it's unlike anything you've had before, you take the chance and savor the simple joy of a snack. In these moments, the world around you feels alive, raw, unpolished, and utterly captivating. But of course, there's more to Roman life than food and markets. A glance to your left reveals a group of children playing a game involving small leather balls and a patch of dirt. They're laughing, shouting in a language that sounds like music, but with the harshness of 1,000 years of history. For a moment, you get lost in the innocence of it all, the simplicity of childhood. Even in a city so advanced, yet so brutal, Roman life isn't always about the grand ceremonies or the gladiator battles. In fact, most of what you're experiencing now is mundane, just another day for the people who make this empire run. You see, there are no knights in shining armor here, no chariots racing down the street. What you're witnessing are the moments that go unnoticed in the grand narrative. For the Romans, life wasn't about the events that made it into the history books. It was about surviving day by day, paying taxes, gathering food, keeping the family safe, and trying to make ends meet. Now, as you continue your stroll through the narrow streets, you're greeted by a man selling leather sandals, a Roman specialty. You can't help but laugh at the irony. He's pitching something that seems so simple, yet it's so important in this city of dust and stone. No sandals, no walking, and Romans love to walk. They may have had their slaves, their grand villas, and their opulent feasts, but they sure didn't mind getting their feet dirty in the streets. The contrast is striking. While one part of the city is grandiose, with its marble columns and temples to the gods, another part is well, a little less glamorous. This is a city of contrasts, of grandeur and decay, luxury and poverty, noise and silence. And it's here, in the shadow of the Colosseum, where the true essence of Roman life is found. You pause by the old stone fountain at the center of the square. Its waters trickle, the only sound that offers some respite from the chaotic marketplace. You watch as a group of children rush past, their laughter echoing. One of them trips and falls, but before you can even think to help, a woman nearby scolds them with a sharp but caring tone. It's a reminder that in this city, the community is everything. No one is truly alone, not even in their smallest moments. But of course, as much as the Romans loved their social life, their world was also a place of very real hardships. The streets are crowded with people of all kinds, from wealthy patricians to poor plebeians. But what's striking about Rome isn't just the social hierarchy, it's the blend of them all, the way the different classes share the same space, and how the invisible walls between them are constantly shifting. Even the smallest interaction between a merchant and a slave can change the course of their day. Power is everywhere, even when it's unspoken, and then, as you stand there for a moment, taking it all in, it hits you: this is life in Rome, not the battles in the Colosseum, not the victories of emperors, but the lives of ordinary people, going about their day, surviving in a city that's as much about survival as it is about spectacle. The hustle, the chaos, the noise, the quiet moments, all of it makes up the pulse of the empire. But what happens next? Well, you continue your walk, knowing that as night falls, the Colosseum will rise even more majestic against the evening sky, and life will continue on just as it has for centuries. Hey guys, tonight we're stepping out of the hustle and bustle of the market and into a quieter, but just as fascinating part of daily Roman life. It's early morning in ancient Rome, and the sun is just beginning to peek over the horizon. The city's heartbeat is starting to pick up, and you, like the rest of the Romans, are beginning your day. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, I'd love to hear where you're listening from. So leave me a comment with your city and the time there. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's story. The first light of day breaks through the window, casting a warm golden glow across the modest home where you wake. The familiar sounds of the city are already rising from outside: shouts from the market, the clatter of carts, and the occasional rumble of a chariot passing by. But here, inside the home of a Roman citizen, there's an early morning routine that everyone seems to follow. You stretch, trying to shake off the drowsiness, and as you do, you can hear the quiet hum of your neighbors stirring in their homes too. It's a simple, almost peaceful moment. But life in Rome isn't always peaceful. The day has just begun, and there's work to be done. You step outside into the narrow streets, and immediately you're met by the familiar rush of people starting their day. The sun is still low, casting long shadows on the cobblestones, and the cool air is a welcome relief after a warm night. You can see merchants setting up their stalls, the smell of fresh bread and fish already filling the air. There's no time to waste here. Everyone has a job, a task, a purpose. For the wealthy, mornings might include a leisurely breakfast in their grand villas, perhaps some light reading, or a quick meeting with their business partners. But for the common people, like you, it's a much simpler affair. You can hear the creak of wooden carts rolling through the streets, hauling goods from one part of the city to another. You pass a man working on a wagon, tightening the wheels with a well-worn hammer. His hands are calloused, his back bent slightly from years of hard work. As you continue your walk, you spot a small group of children running to their school. Their sandals slap the stone pavement as they rush to catch up with the others, laughing and shouting in excitement. The education of children is important in Rome, especially for those from wealthier families. But for most, schooling is practical learning to read, write, and count just enough to get by in the world. You stop for a moment to watch them. It's a simple sight, but one that reflects the core of Roman life: duty, work, and the continuation of traditions. These children, running through the streets with boundless energy, are learning the same lessons their parents and grandparents did. The cycle of Roman life goes on generation after generation, but there's one thing you can't help but notice. No matter where you go in the city, there's always the subtle tension between the classes. It's not necessarily something that's openly acknowledged, but it's there, lurking in the background. As you pass the wealthier districts, you can see the stark contrast: the grand marble villas, the columns, the intricate decorations. You catch a glimpse of a well-dressed Roman patrician, his tunic spotless and perfectly pressed, as he strolls down the street with an air of importance. He's got business to attend to, of course, and he's surrounded by a few slaves who are likely carrying his scrolls or preparing for his next meeting. For the rest of the city's citizens, though the day is a bit less glamorous, you notice the smaller homes, the humbler shops, and the narrow alleyways that fill with smoke as street vendors start to prepare their food for the day. Some of the women are already heading to the public fountains to fill their water jugs, while others gather at the market to see what goods they can trade. The daily grind has begun. And then, as you continue your walk, you come across something you didn't expect: a group of women standing outside a temple, waiting for the priestess to arrive. It's not a grand, sweeping religious ceremony, but more of a quiet gathering. They're not there for a huge sacrifice or a parade. They're there to pray for protection, for good harvests, for their children's well-being. The rituals of Rome may be grand and public in some places, but in many ways, they're personal and intimate for the average citizen. You pause and watch for a moment. It's a reminder that, despite all the spectacle and drama of Rome, much of life is lived in these small, personal moments. People pray, work, and live in the shadows of greatness, often unnoticed by the grand tales of history. And just as the sun climbs higher in the sky, you find yourself caught in the familiar rhythm of Roman life. It's all happening around you: the hustle of the market, the steady march of time, and the weight of an empire that continues to grow. But for now, you're just another Roman citizen, living your life in the shadow of the Colosseum, where gladiators fight for glory and emperors rule the land. And you wonder, as you turn the corner, what stories these streets will tell in the years to come. Hey guys, tonight we're diving a bit deeper into the everyday lives of Romans, those who lived in the shadow of the Colosseum, but were far from the spotlight. As the day unfolds, we'll explore what life really felt like for the citizens of Rome, beyond the grandeur of the empire and the battles in the arena. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments how long you've been fascinated by ancient history, or what parts of Roman life intrigue you the most. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's story. As the sun reaches its peak, the streets of Rome are bustling with energy. You've been walking for hours now, and the city feels alive, like it's breathing. You can hear the distant clang of blacksmiths hammering away at metal, the calls of street vendors offering their goods, and the general hum of a city that never truly sleeps. But as vibrant as this city is, it's also full of contrasts. While the elites enjoy luxury, most of the citizens must work hard just to make ends meet. You pass a busy street corner where a group of merchants are unpacking baskets full of figs, olives, and exotic fruits. They shout over one another as they haggle, trying to get the best price. This scene is familiar, one you've witnessed every day since arriving here. But today, you take a moment to observe the nuances, the smiles on some faces, the furrowed brows on others. These vendors aren't just selling food, they're selling survival. The daily grind, where every transaction can make or break a family's fortune. In the midst of this, you spot a group of Roman soldiers, their armor gleaming under the midday sun. They're standing in a line near a marketplace stall, waiting for their orders. Perhaps after a long patrol or a shift at the Colosseum, they look out of place here, standing so still among the chaos of everyday life. Yet they're a part of this society, protectors, enforcers, and often the ones who keep the peace. You can't help but wonder what it must have been like to be a soldier in this vast empire. Their lives aren't as glamorous as the stories you've heard about emperors and generals. Instead, they spend their days marching, training, and maintaining order in a world that's constantly changing. Some of these soldiers will be sent far away to the borders of the empire or beyond, while others will stay in Rome, guarding the streets they patrol every day. As you continue your walk, you pass a group of women who are sitting in the shade, chatting and weaving baskets. It's a peaceful scene, but even in their moments of rest, there's a sense of labor. These women aren't just chatting, they're working, crafting goods that they'll sell at the market later. In a way, the entire city seems to be in motion, never truly resting, always working towards something. Even in their leisure, people find a way to keep contributing to society. And speaking of work, you hear a distant horn, and it makes you pause for a moment. The city is shifting gears. As it does every afternoon, the slaves and laborers are heading home, while the wealthier Romans begin their evening rituals. You catch a glimpse of a noble woman, her rich purple tunic flowing behind her as she steps out of her villa. Her face framed by a fine veil, she walks with a certain air about her, as though the world was hers to command. But, of course, her life is one of luxury and also of expectations. These are the small moments that make up the fabric of Roman society. It's not just about the grand feasts or the gladiatorial contests. It's about the quiet, everyday life of the common citizen. For some, it's about survival. For others, it's about maintaining status. Everyone plays a role in this immense machine of Roman society, no matter how large or small. As the afternoon drags on, you make your way toward one of the public baths. It's a place of respite, where Romans from all walks of life gather to cleanse themselves, socialize, and unwind after a long day. The baths aren't just about hygiene, they're a social institution, a place to discuss business, politics, or simply relax. You step into the warm, steamy air, feeling the heat from the pools as you walk past clusters of people chatting in the water. It's here in these shared spaces that you get a sense of how deeply intertwined the Roman citizens are, regardless of their class. But while the bath may seem like an oasis of calm, it's not all relaxation. You overhear fragments of conversation, snippets of political gossip, and the occasional heated debate. The upper class may have their private villas, but even here, in the public baths, you see the subtle power plays at work. It's a reminder that in Rome, everything has a purpose, whether it's a conversation or a dip in the bath. Everyone is always playing a part. As the sun begins to dip lower in the sky, the city starts to settle into a rhythm. You've walked through the busy streets, overheard stories, and seen moments of tension. And now, you're beginning to understand what it means to live in a place like this. There's a pulse to it, one that's built on commerce, labor, power, and survival. But amidst the noise, there's something else, a sense of community, of shared purpose. In the heart of the empire, no one is truly alone, even when they're lost in the hustle and bustle of daily life. Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the world of Roman entertainment where the line between work and play was often blurred. As you walk through the bustling streets, you can hear the distant roar of the crowd, the echoing clang of armor, and the rhythmic beat of drums. Yes, it's gladiator season. And while you're not on the battlefield yourself, you're about to experience the spectacle and the darker side of Roman life that makes the Colosseum stand out. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments, do you think the Roman gladiators were true heroes, or were they just pawns in a cruel game? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's story. You step closer to the Colosseum, the massive structure dominating the skyline, casting a long shadow over the city. The sun is high in the sky now, and you can feel the anticipation in the air. It's not just another day in Rome, it's a day for entertainment, for blood, and for glory. You're not here to fight, of course, but you'll witness something that no other city can offer: the gladiatorial games. The Colosseum isn't just a stadium. It's a symbol of power, both for the emperor and the empire. You watch as people pour into the arena, their faces a mix of excitement and expectation. The stands are already filling up with the elite, dressed in their finest robes, while the lower classes scramble for their spots, hoping for a good view. For them, these games are a chance to escape the daily grind. It's a spectacle, an event, a rare moment when they can be part of something greater. As you find your seat in the crowd, the air is thick with a scent of sweat, dust, and anticipation. You can hear the faint sound of the trumpets announcing the beginning of the games. The crowd starts to cheer, and you feel it too, the collective energy of the thousands of people around you, waiting for the first fight to begin. This isn't just entertainment. It's an event that has come to define Roman society. The gladiators, though they may be slaves or criminals, are treated like heroes. For the day, the doors open, and the first group of gladiators steps into the arena. They're clad in their distinctive armor, holding their weapons with grim determination. Some of them are towering figures, others are smaller, quicker, relying on speed to survive. You watch as they take their positions, eyes locked on each other. There's no turning back now. You can see the tension in their muscles, the way their eyes flicker around the arena, always alert. It's not just a fight, it's a performance. They're here to entertain, yes, but also to survive. The combatants begin to circle each other, their movements slow at first as they test each other's defenses. There's no rush. This is a battle of endurance, of strategy, of waiting for the right moment. And then, suddenly, one of them lunges. The crowd gasps as the swords clash, and you can feel the impact even from where you're sitting. The clash of metal, the roar of the crowd, it's all overwhelming. The games have begun. As the fight continues, you can't help but wonder what it's like to be one of these gladiators. They may be slaves, but they're treated like kings in this moment. The crowds cheer, their voices rising with each successful blow. The excitement is palpable. It's a dangerous game of life and death, and every fighter knows it. One wrong move, one misstep, and it's over. But the rewards are huge: the fame, the fortune, the glory that comes with surviving a battle. Yet you also sense the cruelty of it all. These gladiators are slaves, often prisoners of war or criminals, forced into the arena for the amusement of the crowd. Their lives are controlled by their masters, and their only way out is through victory or death. It's a brutal system, but one that serves a very specific purpose for the Romans. The games are not just about entertainment. They're about power. They're a reminder of the emperor's absolute control, a way to show the people that no one is truly free, not even the mightiest warriors in the arena. The fight comes to a sudden end when one of the gladiators is struck down. The crowd erupts into a frenzy, and you can see the victor raise his sword in the air, blood dripping from the blade. He's won. But it's not over yet. The emperor will decide if the defeated gladiator lives or dies. The decision isn't made by the gladiators themselves. It's in the hands of the crowd and the emperor. This, too, is part of the spectacle, the idea that life and death can be decided on a whim, all for the sake of entertainment. As the next round of combat begins, you realize that the games are more than just a form of entertainment. They're a reflection of Roman society, a place where strength, power, and spectacle are valued above all else. And for the gladiators, it's not just about fighting for survival. It's about proving that they can endure, that they can fight for their lives and their honor, even in the face of certain death. You leave the Colosseum with the sounds of the crowd still ringing in your ears. The sun is setting, and as you walk through the streets of Rome, the echoes of the games stay with you. It's a reminder of the power of spectacle, the strength of the Roman Empire, and the lives of those who were forced to fight in the arena, all for the entertainment of the masses. Hey guys, tonight we're stepping away from the gladiators and into the very heart of Roman society, the family and the daily rituals that shape the lives of citizens. It's easy to think that all Romans lived in grand villas with marble columns and lavish banquets, but tonight we're going to get real. We'll peek into the homes of ordinary Romans and discover what life was like behind closed doors, where they ate, slept, and lived out their days. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, I'd love to know if any of you are imagining yourself living in ancient Rome. What would your life look like? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's story. You wake up to the sound of birds chirping outside, their song mingling with the soft morning light filtering through a small window. The room you find yourself in is modest, simple, definitely not the luxurious homes of the emperors you've heard about. But it's home. The walls are made of stone, but they're worn smooth from years of use, and the air smells faintly of wood and herbs. The furniture is basic, but it's sturdy. A wooden bed frame with a thin mattress covered in blankets, a small table, and a few chairs. There's nothing extravagant here, nothing that screams wealth, but it's enough. You rise and stretch, feeling the pull of the day ahead. The sun is already climbing, casting light through the window, and the sounds of the city outside begin to reach your ears. It's a busy day for the average Roman family. The head of the household, likely a father or older man, has already left for the market or perhaps the baths, but you're left with the women and children of the household. It's their world today. As you step outside into the tiny courtyard, you're greeted by the sight of your neighbors, all bustling about. Some women are sweeping the steps, while others are drawing water from a public well. You join them, filling your own water jug and chatting about the day's tasks. There's a rhythm to it all, a dance of daily life that has been repeated for centuries. You can hear the faint call of the market across the street, the clattering of baskets, and the occasional shout from a child at play. The day begins in a familiar, almost comforting routine. You walk into the kitchen, a small, cozy space with a few clay pots hanging on the walls. The scent of cooking bread wafts through the air as the oldest woman of the house prepares the morning meal. It's simple but filling bread, some olives, and maybe a bit of cheese if you're lucky. This is a typical Roman breakfast, not the grand feasts of emperors, but the food that keeps you going. You sit at the low table, sharing the meal with the rest of the family. The conversation is light, casual. It's about the children's lessons, the work that needs to be done, and perhaps a mention of the upcoming festival. Even in these quiet moments, life in Rome doesn't stop. There's always something to be done, something to be talked about. But as you sit there, you start to wonder about the women in this household. Their role is so much more than simply preparing meals and caring for children. You've heard about the revered wives and mothers of Rome, but most of them live in the shadow of their husbands. Women in Rome had their place managing the household, ensuring the family's reputation, and maintaining social standing. The more you think about it, the more you realize that Roman women weren't just bystanders in the grand Roman story, they were its backbone. After breakfast, the family scatters to tend to various tasks. Some are going to the market to sell wares, others are cleaning, and some of the children are off to their studies. You decide to join a few of the women as they head to the nearby public baths. Public baths in Rome are more than just places to wash. Their social hubs where citizens gather to relax, gossip, and discuss everything from politics to the latest gossip about the gladiators. As you walk through the crowded streets toward the baths, you pass through the neighborhood, and you start to see more and more of the daily rituals that make up Roman life. The craftsmen working on their latest projects, the women tending to their gardens, and the old men sitting in the shade, sipping their wine and gossiping about the latest political scandal. It's all very ordinary, very human. There's nothing glamorous about it, no grandeur, no empire building, just the simple things that make up the fabric of life. Once you reach the baths, you're greeted by the warmth of the steam rising from the hot pools. There's a soft murmur of conversation in the air as Romans of all classes gather to soak, scrub, and relax. It's one of the few places in the city where social class doesn't matter as much. Yes, the senators and wealthy merchants have their own private areas, but for the most part, everyone shares the same space. Men and women, slaves and free people alike. The baths are a place of equality, a rare space where everyone is stripped of their social status for a moment. As you sit by the warm waters, you realize just how much these simple routines shape Roman life. They might seem mundane, even repetitive, but they're the glue that holds the empire together. It's not just the political machinations or the grand events that define Rome, it's the everyday moments, the rituals of family, the quiet exchanges between neighbors, and the small acts that make up a day in the life of a Roman citizen. And as the sun begins to set, you find yourself feeling a sense of peace. In the midst of all the power, the spectacle, and the grandeur, there's something deeply human about these quiet moments. It's a reminder that even in the mighty Roman Empire, it was the small, everyday lives of ordinary people that kept the wheels turning. Hey guys, tonight we're exploring the world of Roman warriors, but not the kind you're thinking of. While the gladiators get all the glory, there's another group of fighters who played a huge role in shaping the empire, the Roman soldiers. These men who lived and fought far from the city's marble streets were the backbone of Rome's military dominance. But what was it really like for a Roman soldier on the front lines? Let's dive into their lives, their struggles, and their training. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments if you've ever imagined being a soldier in the Roman legions. What kind of soldier do you think you'd be? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's story. You find yourself walking alongside a group of Roman soldiers, their armor clanking softly with each step as they march in formation. It's early in the morning, and the city is just beginning to wake up, but these men are already up and moving, headed out for another long day of drills, training, and preparation. They're not fighting today, but they know that when the time comes, they'll be ready. The life of a Roman soldier isn't as glamorous as the statues and stories make it seem. Sure, they wear the finest armor, and yes, they get to march under the banners of the empire, but their lives are filled with grueling work, harsh conditions, and a constant struggle for survival. Most of these soldiers will spend years, even decades, away from their families, stationed in distant corners of the empire. Some will never return home at all. As you march along with them, you start to feel the weight of their lives. These soldiers wake up early, long before the sun is high in the sky. Their mornings are filled with drills, sword practice, and physical conditioning. There's no time for idleness. If they're not training, they're building fortifications, repairing their equipment, or preparing for whatever may come next. The Roman legions are an incredible fighting force, known for their discipline, organization, and unparalleled strategy. But it's not just about fighting. Roman soldiers are engineers, carpenters, and builders. They construct roads, bridges, and forts wherever they go. It's their work that helps extend the empire's reach, making it easier for the Romans to control such a vast swath of land. But there's something you notice as you walk alongside these men. They're not all the same. Some are seasoned veterans, their faces hardened by years of battle. Others are younger, still full of energy and eager to prove themselves. The younger soldiers look at the veterans with a mix of admiration and anxiety, knowing that one day they too will be scarred by the years of conflict. As you continue your walk, you see a soldier standing by himself, his eyes staring off into the distance. You approach him cautiously, and he greets you with a nod. "It's not an easy life," he says, his voice low. "We spend years away from home, never knowing if we'll see our families again. And even when we do return, we're often forgotten, replaced by younger men." He shrugs, as if the words don't matter much anymore. It's clear that the price of being a Roman soldier is a heavy one. The conversation lingers in your mind as you continue your journey. You've heard the tales of Roman legions marching across Europe, conquering lands from Britain to Egypt, but the reality of it is different. It's not about the glory, it's about survival. It's about the long hours, the exhausting marches, and the unyielding demands of the military. You pass through a small camp where a few soldiers are resting, cleaning their armor, and sharpening their weapons. The camp is simple, just a few tents and some rudimentary structures. There's no luxury here, no grand banquet halls or lavish meals. These soldiers live off dried meat, bread, and whatever food they can scavenge along the way. Their lives are far from comfortable, but they don't complain. They know the price of their duty. It's easy to forget that behind the Roman Empire's grandeur, there is a dark reality. The soldiers who fought to expand Rome's borders and secure its wealth were often far from home, fighting in brutal conditions for little reward beyond their pay and the occasional piece of land once they retired. And for many, that reward never came. Some died on the battlefield, others succumbed to disease or injury, their names lost to time. But for the soldiers who survived, there was a certain respect. They were the ones who built the empire, piece by piece. They were the ones who ensured the survival of Rome and its legacy. It wasn't just about fighting wars, it was about maintaining order, securing territory, and upholding the Roman ideal. As you walk through the camp, you notice a group of soldiers gathering around a fire, passing around a flask of wine. They're laughing, telling stories of their adventures, of battles fought, and of lands conquered. For a moment, they seem like regular men, just like anyone else. They're not warriors in shining armor. They're just people trying to make sense of their place in the world. And in that moment, you realize something important. The Roman soldier, like every other citizen of Rome, is just trying to survive in a world that constantly demands more. They're not gods, they're not invincible. They're just men who've been chosen to carry the weight of an empire on their shoulders. As the sun sets, you can see the soldiers begin to settle down for the night. The camp grows quiet, the only sounds coming from the crackling fire and the occasional murmur of conversation. You sit for a while with them, listening to their stories, understanding that their lives, like the empire they serve, are built on struggle, sacrifice, and the hope for something better. Hey guys, tonight we're shifting gears a bit and stepping into the quieter corners of Roman society. While the gladiators fight for glory and the soldiers march for the empire, there's another part of Roman life that's just as important but far less talked about. The everyday interactions that happen behind closed doors in the home and family. We'll take a look at the domestic world of the Romans, from marriage rituals to parenting and everything in between. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, tell me in the comments what's something about ancient Roman family life that you think still holds true today. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's story. It's a quiet evening, and you find yourself in the bustling heart of Rome. But this time, you're not among the crowds of gladiators or soldiers. You're at the threshold of an ordinary Roman home, stepping inside to witness the rhythm of daily life for a family. The door creaks as it opens, and you're greeted by the familiar scent of bread baking in the oven, the soft murmur of conversation, and the hum of a household preparing for dinner. Inside, the family is gathered around a low wooden table. The patriarch at the head, his face lined with years of hard work. His wife, seated beside him, is busy overseeing the children, making sure they're helping with the meal preparations. It's not a lavish feast, but rather a simple, hearty meal, a reflection of the Roman value of practicality and family solidarity. As you watch, you start to understand something crucial about Roman society. The family was the cornerstone of Roman life. In many ways, the empire's strength wasn't just built on soldiers or emperors, but on the backbone of its households where children were raised, marriages were forged, and the day-to-day survival of Roman citizens unfolded. The role of the Roman father was as much about power as it was about protection. The father was the paterfamilias, the head of the household, and his authority was absolute. The wife, though influential in the family's domestic life, was still largely subject to his decisions, especially when it came to finances, property, and legal matters. You notice the quiet power the father holds in this home. His word is final, his decisions unquestioned. But even within this rigid hierarchy, there's love. You can see it in the way he checks in on the children, in the gentle way he reassures his wife about the harvest. The children, too, play their part. The boys are expected to help with the chores, especially in preparing the evening meal, while the girls help their mother with weaving and household tasks. Even though Roman society valued strong, traditional gender roles, there's something fascinating about how these roles are subtly shifting in small ways in every household. The boys are learning discipline and respect for authority, while the girls are learning the art of managing a Roman home. Of course, not every Roman household is like this. Some families are more lavish, with larger villas, more slaves, and greater wealth. But no matter the size of the house, the family structure remains a central part of Roman life. The Romans didn't just view the family as a unit for raising children. They saw it as a reflection of the Roman state itself. The father's rule was seen as a microcosm of Roman governance. To be a good Roman father was to be a good Roman citizen, strict, orderly, and dutiful. As you settle into the evening, you hear the children ask their father about the day's events, anything exciting, and in return, the father tells them about the news from the market, the gossip of the day. His stories are simple, nothing too grand, but there's something comforting about them. It's in these small moments that the family connects, in the space between stories and tasks, in the moments of laughter and play, even in the empire's grandest days. These quiet moments, though overlooked by history, were essential to Rome's entrance. The conversation shifts to the topic of marriage. The father, now speaking more seriously, talks about the importance of choosing a good spouse, someone who will bear strong children and contribute to the family's wealth. Marriage in Rome wasn't always based on love. It was more often about securing alliances, managing property, and ensuring the future of the family line. The idea of romantic love was something that came later, after marriage had already been established. The mother, on the other hand, talks about the difficulty of raising children, about the challenges of running a household, but also about the joys that came with it. It's a subtle reminder that family life in Rome wasn't just about duty, it was also about personal connection and responsibility. As dinner comes to an end, the family moves to the hearth, where they spend the rest of the evening together. The children are put to bed, the wife continues her work, and the father reflects on the events of the day. You realize that even in a society as powerful and vast as Rome, the family unit was essential to its survival. It wasn't the grandeur of the empire that made Rome what it was. It was the strength of the families within it, the quiet, everyday work of mothers, fathers, children, and the slaves who kept the empire running day by day. And as the night falls, the firelight flickers across the family's faces, casting long shadows on the walls. It's a simple, peaceful end to a long day, but there's something powerful about this small, intimate scene. In a world of power struggles and battles, this is where the true strength of Rome lay, in the homes, in the family units, in the everyday lives of its people. Hey guys, tonight we're diving into another fascinating aspect of Roman life, the life of the slaves. We often hear about the emperors, the gladiators, and the grand events, but the backbone of the Roman Empire literally and figuratively was built on the labor of slaves. These individuals were an essential part of Roman society, and tonight we'll explore what life was like for them, how they were treated, and the complex roles they played in Roman households and the empire itself. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, I'd love to know if you've ever thought about the role of slavery in history. What do you think it would have been like to be a slave in ancient Rome? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's story. The sun is setting, casting long shadows over the Roman streets as you walk deeper into the heart of the city. Today, you're not in the marketplace or at the Colosseum. You're in the quieter, more hidden corners of Rome where the slaves live. It's not an easy life, and the conditions are tough. Slavery in Rome wasn't about the kind of grand revolts you read about in history books. It was about surviving day by day, living under the constant watch of masters and overseers. You find yourself standing outside a modest house, tucked away from the main roads. The home is small, the walls plain, and you can't help but notice how the air feels different here. It's quieter, less bustling, but inside there's life, a different kind of life. This is a home where slaves live, where they sleep, eat, and work. But unlike the homes of the free citizens, there's no family unity here. Slaves are treated as property, not people, and their lives are shaped by the whims of their masters. You step inside, and the difference is immediately clear. The space is small, with narrow, dimly lit rooms. There's a sense of confinement, of living in the shadows. The slaves here wake early, just as the rest of Rome does, but their day is filled with manual labor, cooking, cleaning, and running errands for their masters. They live in the background of Roman life, always present but rarely acknowledged. The tasks they perform, though essential to the functioning of Roman society, are often taken for granted by those who benefit from their labor. You overhear one of the slaves speaking quietly with another. "I've been here for years," he says, his voice heavy with exhaustion. "The work never ends. We do everything, take care of the house, the children, the animals. And when the master demands something, we're expected to drop everything and do it, no matter the hour." The slave's words are a stark reminder of the harshness of life in Rome for those who had no freedom. As you continue to listen, you hear another slave, a woman, softly humming a tune while she prepares food in the kitchen. It's a rare moment of quiet in a day that's full of toil. For many slaves, music, storytelling, and small moments of personal connection are all they have to cling to. They don't have the luxury of a family unit to support them, at least not in the traditional sense. Their bonds are formed in these quiet moments. When the weight of their existence is momentarily forgotten, you begin to realize that while slavery was an accepted part of Roman life, it was also a life of constant struggle. Slaves had no personal identity outside of the roles they were assigned, whether as domestic servants, agricultural workers, or entertainers in the arenas. Their lives were defined by the needs of their masters, not by their own dreams or desires. It's a brutal reality, but it's also a reality that many Romans accepted as a natural part of their society. As you watch the slaves move through their chores, you can't help but notice the fear in their eyes, the fear of punishment, of being sold or traded away, of being separated from their families. While some slaves may have been treated relatively well, others were subjected to the worst kinds of cruelty. Physical punishment was common, and it wasn't just for disobedience. It was a tool used by masters to maintain control, to remind their slaves that they were property, not people. But not all slaves accepted their fate. Some tried to escape. Others fought back in small, subtle ways, deliberately breaking tools, delaying work, or even stealing from their masters. These small acts of defiance were often their only means of control, and while they may have been punished for these actions, they also represented a form of resistance, a quiet rebellion against the dehumanization they faced every day. As the evening draws to a close, you see the slaves retire to their small quarters, where they will sleep on hard straw mats. There's no luxury here, no comfort, just the cold stone of the walls, and the knowledge that tomorrow will be much the same as today. The master's family will eat their dinners, sleep in their soft beds, and enjoy the privileges of wealth and power, while the slaves continue to toil in the shadows. In the grand sweep of history, the lives of these slaves are often overlooked, but their work hidden away in kitchens, workshops, and fields was what allowed Rome to grow into the empire it became. Without them, the grandeur of the empire would have been impossible. They were the unseen hands that kept the wheels of Rome turning, the silent workers whose lives were intertwined with the empire's success, yet whose stories were often silenced by the weight of history. As you leave the slaves' quarters and step back into the bustling streets of Rome, you're reminded of the complexity of Roman life. For every emperor and senator, there were countless other slaves, workers, and ordinary citizens whose lives played an equally important role in shaping the empire. The grandeur of Rome wasn't just built on the shoulders of its rulers. It was built on the backs of those who had no voice in its history. Hey guys, tonight we're taking a look at something that might surprise you about Roman life. The entertainment that wasn't just about the Colosseum or gladiators. We're diving into the world of Roman baths, theaters, and public spaces where Romans gathered to unwind and socialize. These were the places where people let down their guard, where politics and business mingled with leisure, and where you could find the quiet moments of Roman life hidden in plain sight. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, I'd love to know, do you think the Romans had the best public baths in history, or have modern spas surpassed them? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's story. It's late afternoon, and the streets of Rome are starting to quiet down. The rush of the marketplace and the noise of the soldiers have faded into the background, leaving room for the hum of something different. You walk toward a large, bustling building, one that's at the heart of Roman social life, the public baths. Public baths were more than just places to get clean. They were the Roman version of a community center, a place where men and women of all social classes came together to relax, talk business, and even socialize with complete strangers. You can already hear the sounds of chatter and laughter coming from the large open doors, the steam billowing out, mixing with the faint sound of water splashing and the occasional splash of oil being rubbed into skin. As you step inside, the temperature shifts immediately. The cool air from the street is replaced by the warm, steamy atmosphere of the bathhouse. You pause for a moment to adjust, taking in the sight of the vast space. There are long rows of marble benches, stone pools filled with hot, warm, and cold water, and even sections for exercising or wrestling. The smell of oil, sweat, and the lingering aroma of herbs fills the air. The Romans were masters at creating an experience, blending hygiene with relaxation and making it a communal event. You watch as a group of men walk past, laughing and joking with each other, each one dripping wet from the pools. They stop at one of the benches, where they're greeted by attendants who begin to scrape the dirt and oil from their skin. It's not the most glamorous of sights, but it's strangely human. People at their most vulnerable, stripped of their armor and titles, all here for the same reason, to unwind after a long day. There's no emperor's robe here, no senator's toga. For a brief moment, everyone is on the same level. In another part of the bath, a group of older men is gathered, lounging by the pool, talking politics. Their conversation is low, but you can hear the occasional burst of laughter. They don't seem to be in any rush to leave. They talk about the latest gossip from the Senate, the state of the empire's economy, and, as always, about the gladiator games. For them, the bath is the perfect place to do business and unwind at the same time. You can tell that these baths aren't just about hygiene, they're about social connections too. As you make your way deeper into the baths, you see something you weren't expecting: an area where women and children are bathing. While men and women typically had separate bathing hours, some baths had mixed spaces, especially for families. The women here are chatting as they scrub themselves with fragrant oils, their laughter filling the warm air. It's a strange, but beautiful contrast the hum of relaxation interspersed with the occasional shriek of children running past, their small feet slipping on the smooth stone floors. You can't help but smile at the sight. For all the grandeur and military might of Rome, this is where the real pulse of the city lies, these shared spaces, where people come together, let their guards down, and simply enjoy life. There's no spectacle here, no grand show, just people living their lives, connecting in ways that have always been timeless. After some time, you leave the warmth of the baths and step out into the cool evening air. The transition is refreshing. You feel a sense of calm that you didn't expect. The rush of the city, the tension of the day has faded, replaced by a quiet contentment. It's easy to forget how much of Roman life was about these moments of escape, places like the baths, the theaters, the public spaces where Romans could momentarily forget their duties and obligations. And then, as you walk through the evening streets, you hear the faint sound of music in the distance. You follow it to the Roman theater, another key part of Roman leisure. Here, the crowds gather not for a fight or a political speech, but for a play, a comedy, or tragedy, perhaps. These performances are more than just entertainment. They're a reflection of Roman society, offering a mix of humor, politics, and social commentary. Just like the baths, the theater is a place where the Romans can indulge in the art of distraction and the human experience. You sit back and watch the performance, a subtle mix of tragedy and farce. The actors are skilled in their craft, using exaggerated gestures and quick wit to make the crowd laugh. It's a far cry from the life of the gladiators or the soldiers, but in its own way, it's just as Roman. The theater, like the baths, is a place where the stress of daily life fades, if only for a few hours. As you leave the theater, your heart feels lighter, and you find yourself reflecting on the different ways Romans spent their leisure time. Whether in the bath, in the theater, or at the games, these moments of escape were essential to the survival of the Roman spirit. The empire may have been vast, but it was the quiet, shared spaces like these where the true connections of Roman society were made. Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the fascinating world of Roman law and order. It's often easy to picture Rome as a place of grandeur and spectacle, but the backbone of its society was built on its laws. Tonight, we're going to explore how justice was administered in ancient Rome, how the courts functioned, what punishments were handed out, and the strange and sometimes baffling ways that Roman law impacted everyday life. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments if you think ancient Roman laws were harsh or fair. What's your opinion? Nah, then the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's story. You find yourself standing at the edge of the Roman Forum, surrounded by the ruins of what was once the heart of political and legal life in ancient Rome. It's early morning, and the city is just beginning to stir. The streets are filled with the usual hustle and bustle, but there's something different in the air today. There's a certain tension as you walk past a crowd gathered around the entrance to one of the courts. Today is a court day, and the people of Rome have gathered to witness the administration of justice. You approach the entrance to the courtroom, the heavy wooden doors creaking as they open, revealing a large space filled with stone benches and marble columns. At the far end, a raised platform holds the judge dressed in his ceremonial toga, ready to pass judgment on the cases brought before him. The Roman legal system, as you quickly realize, was sophisticated. It was based on a combination of tradition, statute, and custom, with a vast body of law that covered everything from property disputes to criminal offenses. But what strikes you is the sheer complexity of it all. Rome wasn't just about military conquests and emperors. It was about rules, about maintaining order, and about enforcing justice, however brutal it might have been. As the cases began, you hear the first defendant brought forward, an older man accused of stealing grain from a local merchant. The prosecutor steps forward, presenting evidence in a loud, clear voice. This man, he declares, has taken what was not his. His actions threaten the very fabric of Roman society. The defendant, looking frail and nervous, stands before the judge. His eyes flicker around the room, but he doesn't speak. Instead, he's forced to rely on his advocate, the lawyer, who will argue his case on his behalf. Roman lawyers were a critical part of the legal system, and much like today, their skill and persuasion often determine the outcome of a case. You watch as the advocate steps forward, presenting a defense that's based on technicalities. Perhaps the grain was abandoned, or perhaps it was a case of mistaken identity. He speaks with authority, his voice calm and measured, offering evidence that calls into question the merchant's own actions. The crowd watches intently, murmuring as the tension builds. Finally, the judge speaks. He is a man of great experience, his face stern as he considers the arguments. The law is clear, he says, his voice echoing through the courtroom. But justice must also account for mercy. With a sharp gesture, he declares that the man will not be executed, but must pay a fine and make restitution to the merchant. The crowd reacts with a mix of relief and frustration. For some, it seems a lenient judgment. For others, it's a necessary mercy. You can't help but reflect on the harshness of Roman justice. While the punishments could be severe, the system itself was designed to uphold order. Crimes, both big and small, were punished swiftly and often publicly for the Romans. Public trials and spectacles were a way of reminding citizens of their place in society. The emperors willed the law, and the state itself are to be respected above all else. As the day wears on, you watch as case after case is brought forward. Some involve property disputes, others crimes of passion, and some are more complex, like a case involving a woman accused of poisoning her husband. You hear whispers of rumors as the crowd speculates about her motives. It is clear that the laws of Rome were not just about fairness. They were about control. The legal system was a way for the Roman elite to maintain their power, to keep the masses in check. But what's perhaps most surprising is the system's complexity. The Romans weren't just concerned with criminals and lawbreakers, they were also obsessed with contracts, ownership, and the finer points of civil law. For the wealthy Romans, the law was as important as their military conquests. They hired skilled advocates to represent them in court, ensuring that their wealth and property were protected by the system. And for those who couldn't afford such advocates, they often found themselves at the mercy of the courts with little chance of winning their case. In some ways, the Roman legal system set the stage for modern legal practices. The principles of Roman law, such as the idea that a person is innocent until proven guilty, or that everyone has the right to a defense, are still foundational to many legal systems today. But despite its sophistication, Roman law could also be incredibly harsh, especially when it came to punishment. Slaves, for example, had few rights and were subject to brutal forms of justice, often punished severely for even minor offenses. As the day draws to a close, you step out of the courtroom, your mind heavy with the complexities of Roman law. It's a system that both protected and controlled, that offered justice, but often with a heavy hand. And yet, despite its flaws and its harshness, the law was one of the cornerstones that held Roman society together. It was a reminder that in Rome, no one was beyond the reach of justice. Whether you were a slave or an emperor, the law was the law. Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into one of the most fascinating aspects of ancient Roman life: their religious beliefs. You might think of Rome as a land of warriors and emperors, but behind all the grandeur, the Romans had a deep, complex relationship with their gods. From the everyday rituals of the home to the grandiose temples dedicated to the gods of war and love, religion was woven into every part of Roman life. Let's explore how religion influenced the lives of ordinary Romans and how their beliefs shaped their world. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, leave a comment. What Roman god or goddess do you find most intriguing, and why? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's story. As the sun dips low, casting a soft glow across the rooftops of Rome, you find yourself walking toward one of the city's many temples. The air is cool now, and the sounds of the bustling city are starting to fade, replaced by the quiet hum of evening prayers. This is a sacred time in Rome, a time when the Romans turn their attention to their gods. You step inside the temple, its columns towering above you, casting long shadows that stretch across the marble floor. The scent of incense fills the air, mingling with the faint sound of a priest chanting quietly in the distance. This is one of the many temples dedicated to the gods of Rome. Perhaps it's to Jupiter, the king of the gods, or Venus, the goddess of love. There are hundreds of gods in the Roman pantheon, each one representing a different aspect of life, from war to harvest to the very fate of the empire itself. As you look around, you realize just how much religion permeates Roman life. Temples are not just places of worship. They're social hubs where Romans gathered to seek favor from the gods, make sacrifices, and pray for good fortune. The wealthy might build lavish altars offering valuable gifts to the gods, while the common people make their own offerings, simple prayers, and food offerings to ensure their families are blessed with good health and prosperity. One of the things that stands out to you is how intertwined religion is with the everyday lives of Romans. It's not just about going to the temple for a special occasion or holiday, it's about daily rituals. Even in the homes of ordinary Romans, small shrines are kept to honor the gods. The Roman household is its own microcosm of the empire, and the Lares and Penates, gods of the hearth and home, are always close by, offering protection and blessings to the family. As you walk deeper into the temple, you come across a group of Romans gathered around an altar, offering sacrifices to one of the gods. The sacrifice isn't always grand. It might be a simple offering of food, wine, or incense. The idea is that these offerings maintain the god's favor, ensuring prosperity and protection for the city and the family. You watch as the priest makes an offering, a prayer whispered softly into the air. It's a ritual that has been practiced for centuries, passed down through generations, and yet it feels timeless. One of the things that surprises you is how many of these rituals are focused on maintaining balance, keeping the gods happy so that the world doesn't fall into chaos. The Romans believed that the gods controlled every aspect of life, from the harvest to the weather to the outcome of battles. If the gods were displeased, disaster could strike. Earthquakes, plagues, crop failures, they were all seen as signs that the gods were angry. So it wasn't just about asking for good things, it was about appeasing the god so that nothing bad would happen. As you step outside the temple, you can see the faint glow of other temples dotting the skyline, each one dedicated to a different god. Every Roman city, town, and home had its own local gods, and Rome itself was filled with temples to every god imaginable. The Roman pantheon was vast, and the gods were everywhere. Jupiter, the god of the sky and thunder, was the most powerful, but there were gods for everything else: Mars for war, Mercury for trade and communication, Neptune for the sea, and countless others. Even the emperors themselves were deified after their deaths, becoming gods in the eyes of the people. It's easy to see why the Romans were so dedicated to their gods. Their entire lives, political, social, personal, were connected to their relationship with the divine. The Romans believed that if they kept the gods pleased, their empire would continue to thrive. The very foundations of Roman power, from its military might to its political influence, were tied to the favor of the gods, and so every Roman, whether wealthy or poor, soldier or merchant, was deeply invested in the spiritual health of the empire. But not everyone agreed on the gods. You've heard whispers of some Roman philosophers, scholars, and even emperors who questioned the traditional beliefs. Some argued that the gods were nothing more than stories and symbols, while others believed that the gods were real, but not to be relied upon for every aspect of life. The tension between these different views of religion created a complex web of belief, one that was constantly shifting and evolving throughout Roman history. As you walk away from the temple, the evening sky now turning dark, you can't help but feel the weight of the Romans' devotion. Their gods were not distant, mythical beings. They were part of the very fabric of Roman life. Whether in times of joy or hardship, the gods were always there, shaping the fate of the empire. And in the end, it wasn't just about the grand temples or the magnificent ceremonies. It was about the everyday acts of devotion that kept the gods close, ensuring that Rome's power and prosperity would continue for generations to come. Hey guys, tonight we're stepping away from the grand spectacles of Rome and taking a closer look at something that might have been overlooked by most people living in the empire: the lives of the poor and the marginalized. While the elite lived in luxury and the soldiers marched for glory, there were millions of ordinary Romans, many of whom struggled daily just to survive. We'll explore what life was really like for the lower classes in ancient Rome and how they managed to navigate the complexities of the empire's social structure. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, leave a comment below. What do you think it would have been like to be one of the poor Romans? Do you think you could survive in such a harsh society? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's story. You find yourself standing in one of the many crowded, narrow alleyways that run through the poorer districts of Rome. The contrast is immediately striking. The vibrant hustle of the elite quarters feels like a world away. Here in the slums of Rome, life is different. The air smells of sweat, food, and the occasional waft of waste. The streets are lined with makeshift stalls, where people sell what they can, trying to make a living. Children run barefoot through the dirt, their faces streaked with the grime of the day. As you walk deeper into the area, you notice the squalor that surrounds you. The buildings are nothing like the grand villas of the elite. These are cramped, crumbling structures made of mud brick, with thin walls and small windows that let in barely any light. The homes are overcrowded, with families of several generations squeezed into rooms not much bigger than a modern closet. There's no privacy here, no luxury, just the barest necessities for survival. You pass a small family gathered around a pot of food outside their home. The father is stirring the pot, while the mother holds a baby wrapped tightly in cloth. The children are playing nearby, but their laughter is faint, as if it's struggling to break through the weight of their surroundings. It's not a life of abundance, it's a life of survival. These families live with the constant uncertainty of whether there will be enough food, whether the roof over their heads will hold up for another storm, whether the next day will be any better than the one before. Despite the hardships, the people here seem resilient. You watch as the father hands a portion of the stew to one of the older children, who runs off to share it with a neighbor. There's a sense of community here that you hadn't expected, people banding together to make life just a little bit easier. It's a reminder that even in the darkest corners of Roman society, there's a deep sense of solidarity and understanding that survival is a group effort. As you continue walking through the neighborhood, you see more and more of the same, a constant struggle for food, shelter, and safety. The poor Romans work long hours in the fields or as laborers in the city, earning just enough to survive. Many of them are employed as craftsmen, building roads, repairing homes, or working in the marketplaces. Their lives are hard, and yet they carry on day after day, doing what they must to provide for their families. But not all of them are able to survive in the brutal Roman system. You spot an elderly man sitting in a corner, his eyes tired and sunken. He's begging for scraps, a fate that's all too common for the elderly and disabled in Roman society. There's no safety net for the poor here, no welfare, no government assistance. The sick and the elderly are often left to fend for themselves, and many don't make it through the harsh winters or the brutal heat of summer. It's a cruel reality, one that highlights the stark divisions in Roman society. You think about the vast wealth of the Roman elites, who live just a few miles away, and the disparity becomes clear. The rich live in marble homes with servants, enjoying feasts and luxury, while the poor struggle just to keep their families fed. There's a bitterness in the air as the poor look up at the imperial city, knowing that they are the backbone of the empire, yet they are left with nothing but the scraps from the table of the rich. Yet, even in the face of such hardship, there's a certain resilience in these people. You see it in the way they take care of one another, in the way they share what little they have, in the way they smile despite the odds stacked against them. It's a reminder that, no matter the empire, no matter the social order, the human spirit can endure. As you leave the poor district behind, you can't help but feel a sense of empathy for the people who live there. It's easy to get lost in the grandeur of Rome, to focus on the triumphs of emperors and the battles in the Colosseum. But it's important to remember that Rome was built on the backs of the poor, the laborers, the slaves, the ordinary men and women who kept the city running. In a way, this area of Rome, these hidden streets, are just as important to the empire's story as the grand temples or the arenas. Without the sweat and labor of these citizens, the empire could not have expanded, the roads could not have been built, and the empire's power could not have been maintained. Their lives, though often ignored by the grand narratives of history, are the silent foundation upon which Rome's glory rests. As you leave the slums behind, you feel a sense of gratitude for the small, everyday moments that many Romans take for granted, the moments of connection, of laughter, of shared meals. It's a reminder that in the end, it's not always the grandeur of a society that defines it, it's the strength and resilience of its people, no matter their station. Hey guys, tonight we're exploring the military might of the Roman Empire, not just the soldiers, but the immense infrastructure that made Rome one of the most powerful empires in history. We'll step into the world of Roman military camps, road networks, and fortifications. These weren't just about defense, they were the threads that tied the empire together and helped the Romans expand their reach across the known world. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, leave a comment. Do you think the Romans' military infrastructure played the most crucial role in the empire's rise, or was it their leadership and strategy? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's story. The sun rises over the distant hills, casting a soft light over the vast landscape that stretches before you. You're standing on the outskirts of a Roman military camp, watching as the soldiers began to stir. The camp is well organized, its layout reflecting the Roman obsession with order and efficiency. It's a world away from the chaotic hustle of the city, and yet, it's here, in the heart of the empire, that Rome's power is built. You walk through the camp, taking in the rows of tents and makeshift buildings, each one carefully arranged in a grid pattern. The soldiers are already up and about, their movements precise and synchronized. There's no time to waste here. This is a place of constant preparation, where the empire's military machine is kept running smoothly. You can hear the clang of metal as soldiers sharpen their swords, the thud of hammers as they repair equipment, and the steady beat of drums in the distance, signaling the start of morning drills. One of the things that strikes you is the sheer scale of the Roman military system. The legions were the backbone of the empire, but they were only part of the story. The Romans built an entire network of roads, forts, and watchtowers that spanned across the empire, ensuring that they could respond quickly to any threat. These roads weren't just for soldiers, they were the arteries of Roman power, allowing goods, information, and troops to travel swiftly across vast distances. You follow a soldier as he leads you down one of the many well-maintained roads that connect the camp to the larger empire. The road is straight, wide, and sturdy, built with layers of stone and gravel. As you walk, you realize that these roads were more than just infrastructure, they were a statement. They symbolized Rome's ability to control its empire, to unite its territories, and to ensure that no part of the empire was ever too far removed from the heart of Roman power. The Romans were masters of road building, and their network of roads was one of the most advanced of its time. These roads weren't just about military conquest, they facilitated trade, communication, and the movement of people. They were the veins through which the empire's lifeblood flowed, ensuring that every province, from the deserts of Egypt to the forests of Germania, remained connected to the capital. As you continue walking, you come across a series of stone fortifications, their towering walls designed to protect Roman territories from invaders. These forts were not just military outposts, they were small self-contained cities with barracks, granaries, and workshops, providing everything the soldiers needed to sustain themselves during their deployments. You step inside one of the forts and watch as soldiers prepare for an inspection. Their armor is polished, their weapons are sharp, and they move with the efficiency of a well-oiled machine. Every soldier has a purpose. Every task has a function, and there's no room for error. One of the things that stands out to you is how the military was not just about fighting, it was about survival. The Romans knew that in order to maintain their empire, they had to ensure that their soldiers were well prepared, well fed, and well equipped. These fortifications, along with the roads, provided a sense of security for both the soldiers and the citizens of Rome. They were the physical manifestations of Roman strength, a reminder that the empire was always watching, always ready to defend its borders. But as you stand there, you can't help But think about the cost of this military system. The empire's strength came at a price: the lives of the soldiers, the resources used to build and maintain these structures, and the constant pressure on the empire's economy. For every fort and road built, there was a sacrifice, a reminder that the Roman Empire's power was not only built on military might, but on the sacrifices of the many who served and died to keep the empire strong. As the day goes on, you watch as soldiers perform their daily drills, practicing their formations, their maneuvers, and their battle tactics. They move in perfect sync, their shields locked in place, their spears held firm. It's a display of Roman discipline, a reminder that the empire's success was built on its ability to fight, to defend, and to conquer. The soldiers are not just warriors, they are symbols of the empire's power, its reach, and its ability to expand its influence across the world. And as the sun begins to set, you reflect on the role of the Roman military infrastructure in shaping the empire. The roads, the fortifications, and the camps were more than just tools of war. They were the foundation upon which the Roman Empire was built. Without them, Rome would not have been able to maintain its vast territories, its military dominance, or its cultural influence. They were the silent soldiers working behind the scenes to ensure the survival of the empire. Hey guys, tonight we're diving into something that often goes unnoticed in the history books: the role of Roman women. While the ancient world was largely patriarchal, the women of Rome had a fascinating and complex place in society. From the powerful empresses who wielded influence behind the scenes to the ordinary women who ran households and shaped their families, Roman women were much more than just passive figures in a man's world. Let's explore what it meant to be a woman in ancient Rome. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment: do you think Roman women had more influence than we often give them credit for? Nah, then the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's story. As the day winds down, you find yourself wandering through the streets of Rome, where the bustling crowds of merchants and soldiers start to quiet down. The evening has a different energy. It's calmer, more intimate. You pass by a few homes, the flickering light of oil lamps casting long shadows on the walls. You can hear the faint murmur of women's voices coming from inside. In the Roman world, women's lives were far more layered than many would expect. Though they were often relegated to the private sphere, their influence was nonetheless significant. You pause outside one house, drawn by the sound of laughter and the clinking of cups. Inside, a group of women are gathered, drinking wine and chatting. It's an unusual sight, this gathering of women enjoying each other's company and burdened by the presence of men. These women, though not the elites, are clearly enjoying a rare moment of freedom. Their conversation shifts from the everyday concerns of running a household to the more serious matters of Rome's politics, which they discuss with a surprising amount of insight. While Roman society was dominated by men in the public sphere, women were far from powerless. They were expected to manage their homes, raise children, and ensure that everything ran smoothly. In many ways, the household was the woman's domain, an area where she had great responsibility and influence. Roman women could also own property, make business deals, and even act as guardians of their families. This domestic control was not just limited to wealthier women. It applied to all classes, and many women managed their homes with a level of autonomy that modern perceptions often overlook. But the women you're watching tonight aren't just concerned with domestic matters, they're also discussing politics. It might seem odd to imagine women as political commentators in ancient Rome, but in reality, Roman women were often quite aware of the political shifts of their time. Some women, like the wives and mothers of powerful men, wielded influence through their connections, offering advice or, at times, guiding their husbands and sons in the ways of power. One of the most fascinating figures in Roman history is Livia Drusilla, the wife of Emperor Augustus, who, though never officially ruling herself, was one of the most influential women in Roman history. Through her son Tiberius, she ensured her own legacy and power. She may have been sidelined in the official narratives, but behind the scenes, Livia was an incredibly powerful figure who helped shape the Roman Empire. You continue to walk, the evening growing darker, and you pass by more homes, each one filled with women who may not have the titles of queens or empresses, but still carry weight in their own right. You pass by a bakery where a woman is kneading dough, preparing for the morning rush. Nearby, a woman is supervising a small group of children, instructing them in their studies. Everywhere you look, Roman women are busy, not just supporting their households, but also playing essential roles in the workings of their communities. In the elite circles of Rome, women like Agrippina the Younger and Cleopatra of Egypt were known for their political savvy and their involvement in the affairs of state. Agrippina, the mother of Emperor Nero, managed to manipulate the political system, using her position to consolidate power for herself and her son. Cleopatra, though not Roman, was an influential figure who interacted with several Roman leaders, most notably Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. These women weren't just passive onlookers, they were actively involved in shaping the course of history. Yet, while some women held great power, the majority of Roman women lived more traditional lives. They were expected to marry, have children, and manage their homes. However, there were exceptions. Women in Rome's higher classes, particularly those in the imperial family, could find themselves at the center of political maneuvering. These women were often highly educated, well-connected, and could exert considerable influence over their husbands, children, and even the empire itself. You stop at a market stall where a woman is selling fruits and vegetables. She looks up as you approach, her face warm and welcoming. This woman, though she might not wield political power, holds a crucial role in the Roman economy. Markets like these, often run by women, were central to the daily functioning of Rome. These women were entrepreneurs in their own right, managing their own businesses, negotiating prices, and serving their communities. Their work may not have made them famous, but it was vital to the economic life of the empire. As the evening settles in, you can't help but reflect on the multifaceted lives of Roman women. While their roles were often limited by societal expectations, they still found ways to influence the world around them through politics, economics, and family. They weren't just wives and mothers. They were powerful players in the silent workings of the empire, shaping the future of Rome in ways both large and small. And as the last light fades from the sky, you realize that, in many ways, the Roman Empire was built not only on the strength of its soldiers and emperors, but on the strength of the women who, behind the scenes, made sure the empire's heart kept beating. Hey guys, tonight we're wrapping up our journey through the vibrant, complex world of ancient Rome. We've seen the triumphs of the empire, the lives of soldiers, slaves, and citizens, and even the quieter moments of Roman life. But tonight, we'll take a look at the eventual decline of the empire, what went wrong, how it unraveled, and what legacy it left behind. The fall of Rome is one of the most dramatic and studied events in history, and we'll explore the multifaceted reasons behind it. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments, do you think the fall of Rome was inevitable, or could it have been prevented? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's story. You stand at the edge of the ruins of the once great Roman Empire, gazing at the remnants of a civilization that dominated the ancient world for centuries. The grand marble columns and arches, now weathered and crumbling, tell the story of Rome's incredible rise to power. But as you look around, you can't help but feel the weight of time. This city, this empire, is no longer what it once was. It's the 5th century AD, and Rome is in the midst of a slow but inevitable collapse. The empire that once spanned continents, stretching from Britain to Egypt, has been in a state of decline for centuries. The economy is faltering, borders are under constant threat from invading tribes, and political corruption has seeped into every layer of Roman society. As you walk through the streets, you can see the contrast between the grandeur of the past and the decay of the present. The mighty Roman legions, once unstoppable, are now struggling to defend their borders from the growing number of barbarian tribes. The wealth that flowed through Rome has dwindled, and the once flourishing markets now seem empty and desolate. The architecture, once a symbol of Roman ingenuity, now stands as a testament to the empire's slow disintegration. You think about the reasons behind Rome's fall: economic instability, political corruption, military overreach, and the invasion of barbarian tribes from the north. The empire had grown too large, too unwieldy to manage effectively. The very thing that had made Rome great, its expansion, its conquest of distant lands, had now become its greatest weakness. The resources were stretched thin, and the empire struggled to maintain control over its vast territories. One of the most significant factors in Rome's decline was the decline of its military. The Roman legions, once the most disciplined and feared fighting force in the world, had grown complacent. Soldiers were no longer as committed to defending the empire as they once had been. Many of them were mercenaries, hired from barbarian tribes who had little loyalty to Rome and were often more interested in loot than in defending the empire. The quality of Roman military leadership had also deteriorated, and without strong leaders to unite and inspire the troops, the empire was left vulnerable. But perhaps the most heartbreaking part of Rome's fall is how it happened, not with a dramatic collapse, but with a slow unraveling, a gradual erosion of the very things that had made the empire great. The once unified Roman society fractured into factions. The political elite, once focused on the empire's welfare, were now more concerned with their own wealth and power. The Senate, once a symbol of Roman governance, had become a weak and ineffective body, unable to enact meaningful reforms. As the empire's political structure collapsed, so too did its ability to govern. You think about the citizens who lived through these turbulent times, the common people who watched as the empire they once knew fell apart. Many of them had been born into a world of luxury and stability, where Roman roads connected every corner of the empire, where the markets were full of goods, and where the Roman military stood as a symbol of strength. But now the stability they once took for granted was slipping away. You pass by the remains of an old Roman bathhouse, a place once bustling with activity and conversation. Now it stands in eerie silence, a reflection of the larger empire. The baths were more than just a place to clean oneself. They were places where Romans came to socialize, to do business, to share ideas. The fact that these spaces are now abandoned speaks volumes about the state of the empire. The very foundations of Roman society, its social structures, its commerce, and its culture were crumbling. You sit for a moment, reflecting on the end of this once mighty empire. You think about how, in the end, it wasn't one single cause that led to Rome's fall. It was a combination of factors, each one building on the other, until the empire could no longer hold itself together. The political, military, and social structures that had once made Rome the most powerful force in the world had all weakened over time, and eventually Rome became a shadow of its former self. But even as the empire fell, it left behind a legacy that would shape the future of Europe. The Roman legal system, its architecture, its engineering, and its culture would influence generations to come. The idea of Roman citizenship, the notion of laws governing society, and the concept of a unified state would all survive long after the empire had crumbled. As you stand up and walk away from the ruins, you realize that the fall of Rome is more than just the end of an empire, it's the end of an era. But in many ways, Rome's legacy lives on in the modern world, in the ideas it shaped, the infrastructure it built, and the cultural influences that continue to resonate today. The fall of Rome was not the end, it was the beginning of something new. As night falls, you slowly walk away from the once glorious ruins of ancient Rome, your steps light and your mind full of contemplation. The towering structures, once bustling markets, and busy streets, they've all become dust in history. Yet they remain vivid in your mind. You can feel that endless pulse, as though every brick and stone of Rome is telling its story, teaching you the depth of history and the resilience of humanity. Gradually, the noise around you fades, and the street lights turn a soft yellow glow, signaling that the city has entered its quiet night. You begin to realize that, although Rome's grandeur has passed, its spirit still lingers in today's world, impacting each of us in ways we may not even notice. You may never again witness the fierce gladiatorial games or walk the neatly paved roads of ancient Rome, but these memories are deeply etched into the river of time. At this moment, sitting down and closing your eyes, you almost become a part of that era, feeling the resilience and glory of the Romans. Just like them, we each walk our own path, carrying the marks of the past and creating our own stories. Good night, and may you carry the echoes of history with you as you drift into a peaceful sleep.